Hey, everybody, it's Bob Goff here. Welcome to the Dream Big podcast. Hope it's been a really good week. Hope it's been filled with a couple surprises along the way. I just live intentionally, consistently surprised. And by that, I mean this, like instead of having everything be so predictable, find something new. It's a kid playing in a park. It's like somebody that you're just genuinely have like lost touch with, and you're surprised that you connect with again. Today, you are going to be surprised with a really neat guest. Todd Tilghman is you will note him from like he won The Voice in season 18, but he's whole much more than that. He's got a ton of like pastor, and just what you're going to walk away with is good guy. A guy that just wants to move the needle in people's lives. And if there's anybody who lives without any errors, that would be Todd, not ERROS, like air of importance or air of fame or air of any. It's like Todd is just the guy next door. So, Todd, welcome onto the Dream Big podcast.
Man, thank you. I appreciate you letting me come on.
I love this. I love that it's just like you don't dress it up or dress it down. You're just like, here I am. And I love the juxtaposition of having been like, millions of people are watching you win The Voice. But on the other hand, you're just a regular, just dude. So tell us a little bit about you. What's it look like for people that either aren't familiar with you or wondering like, who is this guy?
Well, oh man, I can guess I'm any different than anybody else in that I'm really super layered. And also as far as, I kind of feel like people build a brand, but I kind of think if I don't build a brand and I just do what I do, then that'll be my brand and it'll be easy to keep up,
Yeah,
and
totally.
so
You can be
that's
authentic.
yeah, authenticity is such a big deal to me. But man, I'm a husband. We actually just this past November celebrated our 25th wedding anniversary.
Oh, good on you. That's great.
Yeah,
You made some people too.
yeah, we got a whole bunch of kids. We got them every which way too. We've got 6 kids that biological, 2 that are adopted from South Korea, 3 that are out of the house, one that's out there on the West Coast where y'all are, and
You're kidding me.
yeah, well, not in the same exact area, but on the West Coast, and I spent the vast majority of my life in a very traditional form of ministry, because I don't necessarily love that we do this, but we sort of label what's ministry and what's church, and sometimes, so when I say that, I don't want to come across. I feel like I'm actually more heavily involved in ministry, quote unquote, now than I ever was,
Yeah,
I
and
was a pastor.
I agree 100%, that idea where we try to partition things, and it's just so we can understand them. Like you're just
Right.
trying
Yeah.
to get the peaches up on the shelf. Like you
That's
just
right.
need to get them, but what shelf do I put these on?
That's
And
right.
so sometimes we think, oh, this is like kind of a faith shelf, and this is kind of a
Hmm.
musicianship, or me in a former life being a lawyer, that was on the lawyer shelf.
Yeah.
But tell us a little bit about like this adventure that involved being a pastor for a bit, and tell us about
Yeah.
that.
Oh man, I pastored. If you count youth pastoring, man, I pastored for like 22 years, I guess. I was the lead pastor at the same church, by the way. I moved there with my dad. He was the pastor when I was 14, and I left that church November the 1st, 2020. I was 42 when I left, but I sort of, I reached. It's hard to explain. I reached a place that I really can't explain it except to say I just knew that something had to shift. I kind of kid around with people and say maybe I had a midlife crisis, and I guess maybe I don't know, maybe I did, but something just had to change. I could not keep doing like I was doing in my life, and so I tried tons of things. I was going to be a real estate agent, actually. That's kind of where I landed, but then someone sent me. They heard me singing on Instagram, believe it or not, and they sent me the form to fill out to audition for The Voice, and kind of the rest of that is history.
Yeah. What I
It's
really kind of love, and we've spent some time in past Dream Big podcasts about not being limited by your capabilities.
yeah,
So this whole idea of a new creation, if you're listening and faith is a new thing to you. There, one of the things that was in the scriptures is that the promise that we wouldn't be old us, that there'd be a new one. So like every time I wake up, like I still have gray hair and whiskers and all that,
Right.
but it's like a new Bob, and the old Bob is like he's on the bus. So new Bob, some of us are like we have a successful career in insert here, whatever it is.
Hmm.
Maybe like Sweet Maria, her career was raising kids and having this beautiful family and giving the rest of us a place to have a habitat where we could thrive and all that. But to say, while I'm capable of doing whatever in the marketplace, there's a sense of calling, and not this mystical, like Jesus told me thing, but just like this thing that's bubbling up that I got another gear.
Hmm.
So you did this flyer. You said, well, I don't know. Why not? I got some time. I'll apply
Yeah.
to this thing. And you've always enjoyed music. Has that always
Yeah.
been part of your history?
Yeah, I've sang since I was like 8 years old. I think was the first time I like publicly sang in front of people at church. So yeah,
And you've got pipes too. I mean, like,
well, I appreciate it.
if we get enough licenses and permissions from whatever record people, we're going to, at the end of this podcast, play your new release coming out, PB&J, which is just it is really heartwarming, but it's a snapshot of your heartbeat and this
Hmm.
welcoming, like whatever it is that God made you to do, like to
Right.
just be all that. So tell us about going from like kind of you live in a smaller town in Tennessee.
Yeah, well, I live, yeah, about an hour south of Nashville. I live in a tiny town, as a matter of fact. I think my family and me are the only ones that aren't farmers in our little community. Maybe
Yeah, I
they're
love that.
close. Yeah.
So from that, it must have felt like a little bit of whiplash to then have like kind of national attention. And then on the other end of that, where the voice keeps moving on and they're finding new artists and new whatever, what does it feel like on the other side? Can you take us through that and
Yeah.
what things you had to navigate? Because I think as somebody's listening, whether they're stuck in traffic or they're waiting to pick up in the school line, we have these times where we are living one life within our capabilities. Then we end up in this new place, and then we're on the other side of that new place.
Right.
Tell us about that.
Yeah. Well, now when I went on The Voice, I actually was living still in Mississippi. And so that was, first of all, let me just say, you never know. And I actually sometimes in a way, I'm glad it was a surprise, and in a way, I wish I had a little bit more faith in myself, I guess, because you never know how people get behind you. When I was on the show, it was COVID season. It was a very unique time, and our little town, man. I always say my favorite part of being on The Voice, including winning the show, was that when the show was over and the win was over and the press was over, which was all virtual, of course. I was filming at our church, and I walked out across. We had like this little breezeway between buildings, and when I walked out, the entire parking lot was just filled with people, and they were cheering and and that
Oh,
that was my most favorite part. And but uh, the other thing that you said, after you do win, there's it's I like to try to tell people that, this is good news. This is not bad news. There's no such thing as overnight success. It's still, after you do win, you learn. Especially, I had no idea about anything in the music world. Everything I know today, I have learned since 2020. And so I sort of
yes.
just jumped in with both feet, and I thought, it's almost like you want to say sink or swim, but every morning when I wake up, I'm kidding for the most part. Let me say that. I want to add that, but I always say when I wake up in the morning, I sort of lay there in my bed with like paralyzing anxiety for about 20 minutes. And then then the Lord reminds me that the just live by faith, and I get up, man, and good things happen all the time, And so, now, for almost 4 years in, I guess I've learned a lot about touring and recording, but I've also learned that it's I don't know how to put this, because I want to be encouraged. It's an encouragement. But it can be costly to remain who you are. I've said 100 times if I've learned the top two rules for me in this business. Number one is you have got to remain authentic at any cost, be who you are. But number two is you do have to play ball, and that's kind of a tightrope to walk sometimes, you know.
Yeah, when you say play ball, what do you mean?
Well, you know, there are just agreements sometimes that if you sometimes, like for example, PB&J, I had already spent all of my production budget, and my production budget is still, it's on me. You know, I did, you know, I don't, because I know a lot of people who sort of know the show. I did win a record deal, but you know, I don't know how much I'm allowed to say, but that's not a thing anymore. That so all the production budget's on me, and so I had spent all of my production budget, and so man, I just sort of made deals with people, you know, like, and not with the devil, let me just say.
Yeah, no,
But,
I get it. You'll wash
yeah,
their car. You'll
yeah, yeah,
let's do a little horse trading here.
yeah, and sort of back end deals with the song, because when we wrote the song, I wrote it with Michael Farron and Lance Carpenter, who both are, you know, I always say my number one rule in life, period, but especially in songwriting, is never be the smartest guy in the room. And I think I make that number one because it's the easiest one to keep, you know.
For me too, brother.
Yeah, yeah. But Michael and Lance are both prolific songwriters, and we, you know, I went in that day, and honestly, the song was supposed to be a goofy, my idea, because I just keep a running list of song ideas. And I like to write kind of joke songs, you know, sometimes. And I've written a song with some friends called Gas Station Chicken, you know,
Yeah.
And I'm a four, but I'm funny. And just these songs that are just kind of joke, fun song. And that PB&J was actually on that list. And it was supposed to be, you know, scrambling through the day and surviving on PB&J kind of thing. And it just did not go that route because of those guys. But, you know, now I would encourage anybody that I think if you go into it with a sense that even if you win a national TV show and millions of people were watching and all that, if you go into it with a sense that you and God are cultivating something, you're not just diving into it, you know, you are actually building and cultivating something, and then it makes it so much more valuable to you, or to me, you know.
Yeah.
That's
I
kind of
like
where I am.
that idea of co-creation that we bring all of the giftedness, all of our insecurities, all of
Hmm.
our questions. But sometimes what can happen is people know a little bit about us. And so they think for them, that's the universe of everything. That's who we
Hmm.
are. But they've just seen this little peak. And so that's when your conversation about authenticity, that we can say there's actually more there.
Yeah.
Stephanie, who works helping out the podcast, there would be she knows because she hangs out all the time, like with her husband Marcus, and they've hung out. They've seen Sweet Marie and I. They know up, down, inside out. They know everything. But most people just get a little peek and they think, "Oh, you're the Love Does guy, so it's always balloons and confetti and unicorns."
Hmm.
Um, and so we could be fooled into thinking that is us, and we become a caricature of who we
Right.
are. And then you just feel lost and unknown. And as a flaming Enneagram 7, that's a
Hmm.
problem. But even more so if you're like an Enneagram 4 and you're like, you know, there's a healthy dose of self-loathing that creates some great like verses for songs, but it can be really difficult. Um,
Yeah.
what's a go-to for you that keeps you grounded? For me, I could say it's we made 3 people, not as many as you made, but then they married 3 people, and then they made 4 people. And
Mm.
so what grounds me is getting time with the family, doing this and that. So there's Bob on the road, but then I'm very much a family guy. I'm a back porch.
Hmm.
Let's just hang out together guy.
Yeah.
What is it that keeps you grounded?
Oh, for sure. Certainly, man, my kids, and I still, you know, I am increasingly aware, you know, that one day they climb out of your lap, you know, and they just never climb back up again, and you don't know that's the day. You know what I mean? And so I really am a lot more intentional about that. I've told while I'm on the road, especially singing PB&J, while I'm on the road, because what I do on the road is very much, I almost have to warn people at the beginning of the show, like, you may have come to hear music and you will, but you're going to hear a ton of stories. So if I get like an hour show, that's maybe 8, 10 songs tops, and so, cause I just love to bear my heart, and so I've said on the road a whole bunch of times to grandparents when I've heard, because I'm not a grandparent. I don't know how far away. My oldest son is 24, so I'm not just probably terribly far away, but I don't know. But I've said I used to think that it was because you could love them and send them home, but now I kind of think it's because by the time you're a grandparent, you realize how fast it goes, and you are much more intentional. So that's one thing. My wife, she grounds me in a lot of ways. Let me just say, she kind of keeps me humble, I guess, too. But and with her, we get to go out to dinner and things now and then. It's not that, but what I'll do with her normally, like tomorrow, I have an appointment that's about an hour away, and I'll just ask her. She'll ride along, and we can, just spend that time just together. And because the truth is, this is good. God's good, man. We have seen miracle after. My whole life is just literally like one stack of miracles. And I was in an interview one day. This has been after I went on the Grand Ole Opry, which is a miracle, and I was on an interview, and at the end of that interview, the lady says to me, she says, is there anything in your life that's not a miracle? I'm like, you know what? I don't know.
Yes.
And so, but it also can be challenging because, like you were saying, what people, they see this clip of you on Instagram, and I always tell folks, man, look, God's good. I have a happy life. I don't have any complaints, but it's not quite as cool as it looks on Instagram, and
Yeah.
yeah. And so
I really like how it seems God drops just the right people into our life. Sometimes it's a good friend or a
mhm,
spouse or a combination of things. I was talking to a friend just yesterday about how, I don't know how it got on speedways, but there's race cars and there's pace cars. And the
yeah.
pace car, it seems like that would be a go fast kind of car and certainly has it in them. But the pace car kind of slows everybody down to get everybody in a line. And if
hmm
they're not in a line and all like orderly, then they do another lap till they
hmm
do kind of get their stuff together. And then the pace car pulls off and lets everybody run the race. There's race cars. And I would say with Sweet Maria, she's a pace car.
hmm
She's got a big engine. She would say, I've got a big engine and a small gas tank. Like I can go real fast for
Yeah.
short distances. So, but she organizes our life. It sounds like maybe your wife is great about doing that in your life as well, like to just get everybody like kind of generally in the same zip code and moving in the same direction. Do I have that
She
right?
does. Yeah, she does. But also she is probably the dreamer. She can shine a light on how much I really do need God because these things are so much bigger than we are. Yeah. I actually wrote a song. This is not out or anything, but I wrote a song called Shovel. And the whole point behind the song is the first verse says, I'm the doubter, she's the faith, she's the gasoline when I'm the brakes. And the whole point of the hook in the song is my wife speaks to mountains. She really does. And then I go get a shovel. And that's kind of how our family works.
Yes.
She's,
Oh, I love that.
yeah,
That's a beautiful
yeah,
thing.
she jumps
For
off the
those
cliff.
for those of you that would identify more as a race car,
Hmm
you just go fast. Red line is where you live. You just all gas, no brakes.
Yeah.
Um, I remember seeing a couple of YouTube clips years ago of these race cars that pull into the pits and they come in a little hot and they'll take out one or two of the pit crew because they
hmm
just don't they just don't make that transition well. And so these people that are there to help you, you're actually hurting the people that are there to help you because you're a race car and you go fast. And so just making that transition
hmm
to the people that even the people that I work with here that because I'm going like fast, 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 fast to make sure when I pit that they are here to be helpful, and you don't want
Mhm.
to hurt the people that are there to be helpful.
Right.
Just a great reminder for some go-getters that are listening right now. You know who you are. Don't feel shame. Just pick up the phone and apologize, and
Yeah.
just say, "What I'm going to do is I'm going to come in a little bit, like learn from that." The idea isn't to feel bad about it; it's to just like grow through it.
Mhm.
And then there's some people that just come to be in the grandstands. That they're
Mhm.
just there to observe, not to participate. And the thing about people that are in the grandstands, particularly at a car race, they don't want to see anybody get hurt, but they definitely want to see some bent metal. And
Mhm.
so
Oh
I've
yeah.
noticed in society we have somebody that takes a stumble, a big public failure or even bigger private failure, but they're there to see a lot of bent metal. And I just want to have us not delight in those things, but to
Right.
like grieve with people when there's a big, horrible thing that happens, not
Right.
just be like resist the temptation to want to like read more about all
Mhm.
the ins and outs. Cause like, I don't know, just go to the blood bank, give somebody a little
Yeah.
O positive.
Yeah.
Um, and then the last group, there's the people that are in the infield, like they're the ones taking selfies with Taylor Swift and whatever. But that isn't. There's no cool kids table, and
Mhm.
so if in any of your dynamics you're ever picking up on the cool kids table, then just to say, let's figure out where everybody else is
Mhm.
and go there. Let's disperse. How do you navigate that as a person that is exposed to a lot of different people? Can you relate to that idea of race cars and pace cars
Oh,
and
I sure can.
cool
Yeah.
kids tables? And I don't like, how do you navigate that in your own life?
You know, I would say if I had to say, I would actually probably be more of a pace car than a race car. My wife is a little more racy, but honestly, I what has helped me a ton is I sort of just understand. Well, I don't. Let me change that. I don't know that I understand it, but I'm working on it. This is all written. It's already been written. Whatever this story is that I'm living right now, it's already written, and whatever my role in that is, I will fulfill that as long as I pour my heart into it. As long as I kind of like what you were saying, it's actually such a huge theme of mine when I'm on the road is that everyone in those seats, I do not, and I don't want to take credit for it because it helps me. It all, so I don't want to like seem like some great guy. It's helping me. But I do not like the sense that like I'm up here on the stage and y'all are down there in the seats. I cannot stand the word fans. I just won't use it. People use it and that's fine, but I just will not use the word. It's because a huge theme of mine is that y'all, there is nothing in this world. There is no role in this world, or at least as far as I've seen, that's like more important than the other one. Like, sure, I went on TV and a million people watched, and I get that. And I understand that can, because of society, that can seem way more important. But honestly, I mean, just to give one example, one of the people that mattered the most to me and has made the biggest impact in my life was my little granny, man. She died in 1989. I was 11 years old, but now I'm 46 years old and still remembering the seeds that she sowed. And she never even went on the stage at church. And so, as far as cool kids tables and things like that, every now and then, if you're not careful, those thoughts can creep in like, man, I'm working hard. Why is this not happening for me like it's happening for them? But then God just reminds me that I'm right where I'm supposed to be, and just keep working and keep showing up and pouring your heart into it, and whatever it's supposed to be, that's what it'll be.
Yeah, and I really like if faith guides your steps. There's just so much in the scriptures about just going across the street. You don't need to go
Hmm.
across the ocean
That's
or
right.
do big things, but just like I think of our next door neighbors, there's going to be no books written about them.
Hmm.
They'll be like nobody will know their names, but man, they are the kindest people.
Hmm.
They're just like they pursue us, they love us, they're just ordinary. On the other side of them is somebody that like I don't know invented medicine or something. So, and they're nice too, I'm sure, but they have just such a different. way of doing life, and
Mhm.
God bless them. But it's just a different, more complicated one. But the one that's going to race across when Sweet Maria takes a tumble and gets hurt, man, the ones that are going to be there is that neighbor who nobody will ever know anything about. And in this reverse economy that Jesus kept talking about, I
Mhm.
think, man, those guys are going to have to come way down the hill to find me.
Right. Yeah.
I think
Man,
they're
yeah.
going to have a corner lot.
Yeah, it's so counterintuitive that we don't, at the end of the day, I mean, the ones of us that appear to be last are really going to be the first ones, and the ones, and to me, I remind myself all of the time, man, that the king's court is filled with lepers and prostitutes and adulterers, and so I'm happy to be part of it.
Well, Todd, I'm just so glad that you spent a couple minutes with us. If this is your first experience meeting Todd over this podcast, I hope you'll just delight in his music. Just a really talented, ordinary guy who loves God, but just is like, he's just a family guy. He's just trying
Yeah.
to just make life work just like you and like just like I am. Um, what I want you to do is, if you aren't able to listen to this song right after, just look it up on YouTube. The name of the new song, PB&J, and knowing a little bit about Todd's heartbeat, a little bit about the way he sees the world, I think you're going to see another layer. It's going to be the difference between AM radio and Dolby surround sound, because you'll hear his heartbeat like behind the music. You
Yeah.
guys, you've been listening to the Dream Big podcast. So delighted that you guys tuned in, and go live with a little wonder today. Find a little whimsy. Go and hug a neighbor. It might freak him out. Don't do a creepy hug. You know the difference. But like, just hug a neighbor. Make them a pie. If they don't want it, I do. I'll get you my address. What I want you to do, though, is not just agree with some of the things you may have heard Todd say, but just say, okay, so what am I going to do about that? And that's where all the good stuff is. All right, you guys, we'll talk to you next week.